Okay, so for today's session, we're going to clock a couple minutes down on our belly to get started. So, a prone position. If you like using a blanket, either for under your feet or under your hips, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you can just come straight down onto your mat, like so. All right. So what we're going to do is briefly hang out here in Sphinx, like a really low-lying Sphinx pose. So we're going to take the feet about as wide as the hips, maybe even as wide as your mat. We're going to let the arms splay, but also provide some support so your trunk can relax into the shape a little more. Just to be clear, we've got hips very much planted on the ground, thighs on the ground, feet in the most comfortable angle that feels good to you. Most of the ribs are all on the ground. There's just a little lift here in the top of the sternum and up through the skull. Alright, so as we get going here, let's try just a few yes gestures with the head. There's not a lot of extra room to lift up in extension because we're sort of already there. But there's lots of room to flex and release down and in. Oh. Please try that about 10 times. I'm going to cut the fountain. Some days it's a sweet little babbling brook, and some days it's a little too loud. Okay, so we're, oh my God, flexing and extending the neck. And sustaining a modest, but certainly some amount of back extension. Couple more. Oh my goodness, that feels good. Okay. When you come back to center, you get a little tuck in the chin. Then we're going to splay the elbows a little wider, maybe let the hands come several inches apart. And we're going to allow the head to come all the way down to rest around the temple or jaw. So you're turning your head, setting it down. Now that brief moment you set it down, we'll linger here for a moment, a little longer. Really relax the upper back too, so there's no more extension, you're just neutral spine. And then lift back up at your leisure, your head in the very, very top part of your trunk probably. Just be there for a moment. And then slowly turn your head the opposite direction. Lower it down and come fully to rest at the bottom. And just find your way. Maybe about 2 minutes on the clock. So really no reference to the number of reps. I don't think the benefit of this pose is quite so easily measured. 6 is too few and 13 is too many. Be a little more intuitive about it. Really drop into that first hand experience of moving through these poses. And feel it. Be there with it. Make it yours. Right? Really own it. And trust your sensations in the pose. Many of you may know that we sometimes will do this pose synchronized with a breathing pattern. You're certainly welcome to do that. Generally, that would go as follows. Inhale while you're in the lifting process, and exhale while you're in the lowering process. If you wanted to sneak in those extra phases of breath, the holds, you could inhale to get up, hold the breath at the very top, maybe just a couple beats, exhale to come down, and even hold the breath for a beat or two at the bottom. Last 10 seconds or so. Probably just one more rotation. Okay? Then, when you come back to center, we're going to slide the hands down toward the top ribs. And then make little side bends. So if your breastbone and head are almost moving as a single unit, kind of like a snake's upper body. Maybe you're pointing it out toward 12 o'clock and then 1, 12 o'clock and then 11, and depending on your flexibility, maybe more over toward 10 or 2 o'clock. Now as you get to the end range of motion with trunk and neck, you can add a little more with the head and let it turn and look over a shoulder. Basically like you're looking back at your foot. Oh. Oh, gosh, that feels good. Last couple. Gosh, that feels so nice. And then finally, everybody, let's come on back to center. And let's reach both arms forward, superhero style. Both legs are still extended all the way back. And just pause here, 4 or 5 breaths. Now, many have found that belly down leads to really nice respiration. All that space on your back that is often getting pressed on when you're lying on your back, and there's nothing wrong with lying on your back, we do it all the time, it's all good. But we do much less lying on the belly. And it's got a couple inherent advantages. So one I often point out is just how nice it is to get a little pressure off the nerves in your back and kind of let the cushioning between the discs settle in a direction it usually doesn't move. But also respiration-wise, just all this available kind of tissue in the back part of your lungs, it just feels more available. And so your breath, hopefully you can dial breathing that feels wide, deep, kind of low. Again, with a little deliberacy, breathing into that back body. Just a few more breaths here. You're welcome to let your head go all the way down if you'd rather, or keep that little lift. So, let's run one arm right down along your side, tucked in along the side of your body. And with that arm that's tucked in along the side of your body, activate it in several ways. Tuck the shoulder down away from the ear. Straighten out with your tricep muscles so your elbow irons out. And hug that body into your midline. Like draw it as tightly into your body as you can. It's hard to see. Oh my gosh, that's really strong. And release. Switch. So you run a new arm down along your side, extension. Activate around your elbow so your triceps really turn on. Tuck the head of the shoulder away from the ear. Oh. Release that. Let's try again. And release that. Try again. New side. And then let's do both arms at the same time. So run both arms inside the boundaries of your mat. Get a little squeeze on your glutes. Hadn't highlighted that. Keep the tuck in your chin. Draw the heads of the shoulders away from the ears. Activate your upper back muscles. Lengthen around the elbow joints by activating your triceps. And lift those arms just a little bit off the ground. And release. So let's try that for about a minute. Maybe you do 4 or 5, 10-second versions. Maybe 10 or 12 little 4 or 5-second versions. Just go after it. Last few seconds. Maybe hold one a little extra time or just keep with the pace you're on. Oh, man. And release. Muy bueno. So, let's prop up like this. So the arms are getting a little closer together, maybe only about shoulder width apart, rather than really splayed. My feet have been in about the same shape the whole time, so you might be varying yours. But let's just try this. Let's tuck toes instead. Tuck toes. And then untuck. And then retuck. Untuck. Tuck. So just go back and forth. Really at any pace that feels good, and you can like work foot, 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 or both, 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 both. Either pace is fine. Okay. Next, tuck just one foot, one set of toes. And then you're going to squeeze your knee, thigh, quad off the ground and drop it. Squeeze it, drop it. Squeeze it, drop it. So this is sort of like a parallel for your leg. Right, like similar to what we did with the arm. Really ironing out the back of the leg. This, obviously the knee here. It was elbow with the arm. Strengthening, lengthening, activating, then relaxing. It's actually pretty strong work. Great quad development, good for your knees. And still you get to be in this great prone shape. Last one, hold it out there for a little bit. Oh man. And release. Alright. So let's go to side two. You got the tuck toes. And you just charge that thigh off the ground. And then let it kind of thud back down. Just drop back down. So your knee's got a little kink during relaxation moment. And that knee's pretty ironed out during active moment. Leg number two is just hanging out, totally relaxing well. Just the one leg goes through it at a time. Oh, last couple. All right, and release. Then, let's go back to the pointed toes, what we've been working with most of the time. We're going to bring our head down, but, well, you can just listen to the cues, I suppose. So let your head now rest on a little pillow. And we'll just do some glute contractions. Super simple, but surprisingly powerful and effective. Recruit your glutes. Maybe a little more than that happens. Really give them a good squeeze. Maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 seconds. And let it go. And repeat. And for about 30 seconds, go back and forth, only recruiting one side at a time. This is actually kind of challenging. So you're locking down one glute, which, several muscles, but one side, one cheek. And then relaxing it and then going for the other side. Okay, and then lastly go back to both cheeks. Relax, both cheeks. Contracted, active. Really work those glute muscles. Last couple. All right. Very good. Next, we're going to flip onto our back. All right. I'll be at this vantage point just for one little sequence here. So, I know that was a long prone opening. Hopefully that felt really good. But just give your body, 6 or 8 breaths here to adjust. Stabilize your feet, just right out in front of your hips. Let your pelvis find neutral. Let your spine settle. And just begin to tune into your breathing again. And as you breathe, notice a gentle expansion of your belly on the inhalation. And notice the fall of the abdomen on the exhalation. Notice too on inhalation, it may be very subtle, but your pelvis might tilt slightly forward, the arch in your low back might increase by just a degree or two. Where on exhalation, the opposite pattern occurs. Pelvis tilts mildly backward, and maybe there's an extra couple degrees of flexion in your back. Now just for 8 or 10 or 12 breaths, go along with that. And add a little bit of purposeful tilting and tucking in the low part of your abdomen, the back of your waist, tail, sacrum, lumbar. So down really low, further south than most of us even consider to be our back. I mean, basically it's, very close to anus there. Tailbone. So when you roll the tip of your tail all the way down onto the floor, it'll probably arch some of your lumbar spine behind your waist. But when you go for a little bit more of like a tuck of the tail, you draw the abdomen in and you lift your pubic bones up, well then it rolls more of the wide sacrum down onto the ground, with the sensation your tail is lengthening towards your feet, and it may have even the tip of it rolled off the ground. So inhale, you're feeling a little more arch and a little forward tilt. Exhale, you're feeling a little less arch and a little backward tilt. Inhale, you're accentuating that little bit of forward tilt and the arch, some clearance from the floor. And on exhale, you're accentuating that backward tilt and likely more pressure toward the floor. Last two. Gentle tilting and tucking. Kind of the lower body action of cat and dog tilt. Awesome. Then everybody, we're almost done with this sequence here on our back. Let's transition into a neutral pelvis. If you had to go one way or the other, go for a little more of the tuck on this one. But neutral's okay too. Really feel your collarbones open. Palms open to the sky. Thumbs maybe turn slightly out to the side walls. Activate your arms into the ground like you're trying to pull down into the basement. Tuck your chin a little. And then lift your hips. Either they're neutral or you've got a little tuck in there. Ooh. And then down you come. Either with neutral or a little tuck in there. Let's try for a minute. And again, we'll be pretty flexible with repetitions. Maybe you get through 6 in a minute, maybe you get through 12 in a minute. Focus on just how it feels, on the quality of the movement, and on maintaining that neutral or slightly biased toward tucked pelvis. Oh my gosh. I know I mention this pretty frequently, but bridge is really just a fabulous pose, everybody. It's such a great body weight exercise. It's really one you can do every day. So even on a day maybe you don't tune in to a full session, you can get down and do a few bridges. If you guys are game, let's go actually one more minute and then we'll transition up. So pretty much the same flavor, either a little tuck or neutral. You find the pace that works for you. You've got 50 seconds of bridging to go. Could even, go to a one-leg bridge if you wish. If there's any doubt, just do high-quality two-legged repetitions, last 30 seconds. Setubandha Sarvangasana. It's so good. On this last one, hold it for about a good slow 10 count. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And finally, let's come down. Oh, please roll gently to one side. All right. And then we'll shift up to all fours. goodness. All right, everybody, nice work. Oh. So while it's fresh in mind and body, let's get the lower body tilt tuck action and let it undulate all the way through the spine. I know you guys are pretty savvy with this already, but when you do the tilt pelvis forward, more lumbar arch, tail sticks up, glutes are relaxed, and that carries all the way through the upper back and even a little into the neck. Almost like I'm pointing the crown of the head up toward where like a hammock would be attached, and I'm pointing the tail up and back toward where a hammock would be attached. Then on the cat, obviously there's the tuck of the pelvis, and so much more now when we're in all fours. And now the 2 points where the hammock would be attached are coming together like you're about to fold up the hammock and pack it up. So your forward tilt turns into a full extension through your spine, a la the dog tilt. And your tuck of the pelvis turns into a full spinal flexion expression, a la the cat tilt. Couple more. Remember, tilting comes with relaxed glutes. Tucking comes with active glutes. Tilting usually means the belly kind of softens down a little. Tucking usually means the belly pulls in and up quite a bit. Last one. Right, everybody, last all fours movement here. We kind of did a version of this belly down, but now we're going to walk instead of like a snake, a little more, quadrupedish. You're going to walk from that 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock shape. And with the walking opportunity, oh my gosh, that feels good. You may very well go beyond 11 and 1 into the 10 and 2 region. For the supple, you might go all the way to like 9 and 3 o'clock on each side. Oh, wow. That should really feed like a spot deep in your low back and abdomen. It gets way more than just that, but hopefully it touches that as well. One more go per set. Oh, wow. Oh, jeez Louise, that feels good. All right, so let's come up and kneel. This is really just the gateway to get up off the ground, so you're welcome to use alternate means. And up we come. All right. Let's take a nice hip width distance stance here, maybe even a little wider. Take the hands to the, either up to the waist, like waist, or to your hips, and then do some circles. Like you're standing inside a really small hula hoop, and if you stand straight, you don't touch it. But under this condition, you'd make contact with basically like the hula hoop at every hour on the clock. Yeah? I could just say, make a circle. All right. And then let's go the opposite direction on the clock. Okay. And then come back to center. Now we're going to walk the feet together, walk the knees together, bring the hands onto the knees. If you know for whatever reason this is contraindicated for your knees, you can skip it, but for most this should be totally green lit. You just do little circles here. And your waist might be doing some circling, but that's not so much the origin. It's a little more down in your legs. And then finally circle the opposite direction. And all of this is done with the heels very much mounted to the ground. So only the amount your ankle can comfortably deal with. Alright, and then let's come back to the back side of our mat. Walk those feet together and just get a little tiny version of a squat. And transfer one foot off the ground into your hands. And stand upright. And when you stand upright, try not to bow backward, just be upright. Let's try the new leg. So you come down with 2 feet. You come down to a tiny little squat, 1/3 of a squat. Lift a foot off the ground, get back to standing. And just go back and forth. Now when I do this one, usually I wind up making little tiny steps in between the transitions, which is why I got us to the back of the mat to start. Mini squat, one leg. Mini squat, new side, one leg. Last couple. Balance is, a quality of the body. Like, is it really balanced there on one foot? But it's very much a, mental pursuit as well. It's really a mind-body practice. All right, as all of yoga is, but for some reason I feel like the balancing exercises are unique in that way. Let's go backward again. To the front, to the back of the mat. We'll just do this one more time. I've got many versions of this, but we're only going to do one more. So, feet come together, little tiny squat, pick a foot up off the ground. This time try to catch it from behind. Mini squat. So, presumably this one's a little more challenging. Obviously you still have one solid leg to stand on, but usually moving the leg behind instead of in front is just a little trickier. So be patient with yourself. Do what you can. And once you've covered maybe the distance of your mat, you've done a good 3 or 4 on each side, release. Let's come back. Alright, so now let's do a classic hip hinge. So I'm pointing to my top of my hips, but really it's probably even a little lower, right about here at the crease. And I put that crease in the body and lean forward into the pads of the big toes. And we're trying to recreate a version of dog tilt, where the glutes are more or less relaxed, tail is starting to tip up, but the hamstrings, will stop us from going too far here. And then come back up. So try about 5 of those. So you're hip hinging very mindfully and deliberately to the edge range with a flat back. And then back up. Not letting your hips rock too far backward behind your heels, keeping them just stacked on top. And then right back up. Going to the point where the hamstrings feel like that's about as far as they can go, And then a nice strong contraction of the back of your legs to return to standing. 2 more. No support out there with your arms, so your legs are really having to muscle through these. This is basically a deadlift. Uttanasana in yoga. Kind of a modified Uttanasana. Last one. And release. Okay. We'll see how this goes. But my hope is we can put those 2 together. The last 2. Which was hold onto a foot behind, like half of your asana. And the hip hinge. Oh, man. That is golden. So try, instead of switching sides every time, that's like a little bit tedious, see if you can just do 3 or 4 or 5 on one side. So you're hip hinging and thigh stretching at the same time. It's such a killer move. You're learning to keep your hips square and level. You're learning to maintain neutral spine. Oh, every strong movement pattern for that standing leg, both on the folding into it and lifting out of it, is obviously present. All the while that thigh stretch is alive and well. Last one. Oh my God, that feels so good. And then release. Okay. Feel like we've really laid the groundwork, but this is a fairly challenging pattern here. So it's part hip hinge, like a deadlift, but then turned into like a single leg deadlift or hip hinge. But it's really like classic Warrior 3 in a sense, just without that back leg extending. So we've caught hold of a foot, hip hinging, neutral back, maintenance. Instead of switching sides every time, just getting quality reps in on the one side. Trying to keep my trunk level. What's the end range of motion? I mean, you'll feel it. You can, only go so far likely. But just like the 2-legged hip hinge, it should be where you max out in your hamstring stretch, or the point where it's challenging to maintain flat back status. Oh my God, that's good. Last go. Oh. All right, everybody, let's release that. That is so cool. All right, let's take one leg and lift her up. Maintaining the rib squeeze, strong, solid, straight leg. Then we're going to hold on to the waist or the hip. So we've only got the leg with one hand. And then we'll let the leg open out. Now the trunk still faces straight ahead. The eyes even face straight ahead. The standing leg pretty much is straight ahead. But here we've got external rotation. Okay? Same leg in the air, bring her across, and try more internal rotation. So you just want this lifted leg kind of over on the straight leg side. Sweet. And release. One time, new side. Get some help lifting your new leg. Help from only one hand. Compose the trunk, external rotation in your hip. Leg away from midline. Last part. Internal rotation of the hip, leg beyond the midline. Oh, man. Awesome. Okay. And then release. Alright. Last one here. Let's lift up leg number one. Catch hold of your big toe. Now if that is just not happening, you can catch hold of your shin or your knee. And if you're feeling it, extend that leg straight ahead. And if you're feeling it, add the outward movement of the leg. It's kind of external rotation again, a little different with the leg extended. Return to center and release. Last time, second side. Catch hold of a toe or just hold the shin. Stay here or reach the leg out. Stay here or add leg out to the side, and building on the previous sequence. Eventually make your way back to center and come back down. Excellent. Let's descend. Oh, into madness. Let's descend down into a squat, Malasana. And let's touch down into a comfortable seat, Upavista Konasana. And then let's post up 3 ways. First, backward. Oh my gosh. So you can let the ribs lift a little bit away from your hips. You can let the crown of the head lift a little bit away from the ribs. It's okay to keep the shoulders tucked slightly. And you can really let your, just hit the end range of shoulder flexibility. You can let your arms reach back any amount that feels good. Okay. Whew. Posting number 2 will be to just come to a neutral shape with your trunk without bending backward. Maybe even stabilizing down on the floor. And here it's equal lean back, equal lean forward. So it's really just upright. And then posting number 3, last little bit of this pose, we let the arms come forward any amount. And find that edge. Last couple breaths here. Take your time. Come back up to a comfortable seat. And then let's sit in Sukhasana for just about 2 minutes. Sukhasana. Happy, easy, peaceful pose. Let's come back to some breath awareness. Last time we really checked in a very focused way was when we were lying on our belly, so that was a little while back. So just for, as mentioned, about 2 minutes on the clock, although we're not going to keep, too careful track. Just drop in for a short amount of time to how your breath feels. At the point of entry and exit, it's always a valid place to sort of set the awareness. If you're doing more of a concentration practice, you're kind of fixing awareness. I sometimes use the term, probably sounds kind of goofy, but just one that resonates with me when I do this. We're like little pranic ushers, right? We're like an usher for prana. And we just kind of sit at the front door of the nostrils. Oh, okay, and we're just kind of checking out who's coming in, and then who exits. Not really trying to have a lot of influence in this way, but just watching, just noticing. So in that way that, noticing does have an influence, we're allowing that. Now, continuing with this kind of silly usher analogy, another way to track breathing is, tracking the breath from its entry point all the way into the body. So with the usher analogy, that would be more like watching, one particular person come into the theater and follow them all the way in, and then kind of follow them all the way out. A little different than just manning the door. And there's also a way in which you could just sit, sort of like the usher, but down at the belly. So you're just hanging out with your awareness down in your belly, potentially, and noticing when the breath arrives down there and when it exits. So please, everybody, just find a few more breaths, any way you like to delight in the experience of breathing. And just as we close out here, see if these last few breaths can get a little slower. And you can just trip that system in your body that helps to induce calm, rest, digest. So, we've come to the time in our practice where we're going to do a little corpse pose. So please find your way. If there's any doubt, just lie directly onto your back. But if you know calves on a chair or legs up a wall is going to serve you much better, please find your way into that. Okay, everybody, Shavasana. So, you can make your way back up to a comfortable seat. All right. And let's close out. So we'll place the hands around the heart. And just one last time before we rush into the rest of our day. Hopefully not rush in, just enter the rest of our day off our yoga mat. Let's just pause here one last time and reconnect to your breathing. Notice how your body feels after that session. And give yourself a little mental pat on the back for taking the time out for your health, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And I thank you all for connecting over the interwebs. Namaste.